Good morning, students. Let's get quickly started with the Python CRUD operations. So today is a big day. We will be configuring our front end to work with the back end. So we already have learned the following. Number one, we'll learn how to create a database. We'll learn how to create a table. We'll learn how to alternately measure and how to alternately create keys like unique keys, right, and primary keys. And we have also learned how to create auto increment database types, and we have learned many different things, right, regarding database, and time to apply those things from the front end. So I'll quickly go to IDLE. So I'll open my IDLE, right, and I'll quickly go to IDLE, and this is the database right here. All right, so we will be using database Python test and table users, right? So let's quickly go and get started. Here's my IDLE. I just lost it somewhere. No, it's here. So I'll make a new file. So I'll say register, right? And then we'll apply basically the object-oriented methodology to register the student as well. And I'll show you how to professionally, 100% professionally apply database programming, right? So that is also due for you guys. So I wish you good luck. So let's get started. And yeah, do practice and remain in synchronous with me. If you're not completely synchronous with me, you're going to remain behind just like past. So the first thing that we are going to do is open command prompt and run pip install mysql dot connector. So the first thing that we will be doing is running pip install of mysql connector. So I'll just take it, I'll just keep it in the notepad, right? So this is it here. Pip install mysql dot connector, CONNECTOR, right? So collecting the information of MySQL connector. So mine is already installed and you should go through easily, right? And after you are done with pip install, you'll go ahead with IDLE and you'll open your file. The first thing that I'll do, I'll say import mysql dot connector. All right, so first thing you'll do is import mysql.connector and you will say connection, right? So I will be making a connection. I'm declaring a variable. The type of the variable is not yet decided. The type of the variable will be decided by the value supplied to the variable. So I'll say mysql.connector. So let me first see whether the connector is imported successfully. I'll run it. Yep, it's being imported quite successfully. Right, and second thing I'll say connection is equal to mysql.connector.connect. And now this connect function takes few arguments. Now you can clearly see it's going to take some arguments right here. So I'll try and open it here and close it right here. And the arguments that I am going to supply are the following. So I'll say host. What is the host you're trying to get connected to? And as you can see that phpMyAdmin MySQL runs on localhost. Now you can clearly see here localhost. So I'll take the same host. I'll say my host is equivalent to localhost, right? And then user, by default, if you're not creating any username, so by default user is always going to be root unless you create a username manually. I'll also show you how to create a user. And I will say, all right, so and database is equivalent to, so our database name is it is Python test. So the database name is Python test. So we'll be using the same database right here. So let's go ahead and say I'll copy the database python-test. So I'll use Python test is the database, right? And basically we still have to supply password because we have not created any password. So I'll keep password as blank. I repeat, password is not set. I'll keep it as blank. By default, when you install phpMyAdmin, right, or MySQL, the default username for to access the database is basically root. because there's no password, so we are not going to be providing any password, right? And the database is Python test. So we're supplying 1, 2, 3, 4 arguments to this function mysql connector.connect. So the first duty is we will see, right, connection. So I can say print, right? So I will use the same connection, right? And I will say dot is underscore connected, right? So it's a function is connected. So I'll just call is connected, and let us see what are we going to get. I hit F5. Yes, we are getting true. For example, if I supply a wrong database here, right? Let's say about something that does not exist. So let's see what we get. Hit F5, right? We're getting an error right here. Unknown database Python test app, right? So for that, what we will do right here, always remember, so you should always try, right? And you should always try and accept, right? Try and catch the exception, right? So I can say which exception are we going to get, right? So I'll say catch exception E, right? And once you catch the exception, you can print that E, which is the exception. Now we will see exception as E. Now let's print. Now we are getting unknown database Python test app. So let us keep every single thing in try catch block. Right now let us see whether we are able to catch the exception, right? So it has to be inside try. Now everything is fine. Okay, right? So this is try, and then we have accept, and we are printing the exception. Now let's see, right? Exception has been caught. Now you can say unknown database Python test PPPPP. Now if I provide the right database name, which is Python test, we are getting true, right? And let's say about if something is wrong, I enter a wrong username, right? Access denied for the, right, for user, because you're supplying wrong username and we're denying your access, right? Right? And now you can save and get started like a pro. Now in case if you want to set a new password, right? If you want to set a password or any access, right? So for that you can go to privilege, right? You can clearly see here, you can add a new user account, right? So I can say the username is going to be, let's say about my test user name, and host name is going to be local. Host password is going to be the same, my test. I'll say my test password, my test password, right? Okay. And now we grant privileges on a database Python. We're granting privilege to this user, that this user can only use Python test, and he can apply, you can apply deadlocks that he can only do these operations, or if you want to apply all the operations, so you can apply all the operations here, and then you can click go. Right, my test username has been created. So now I will supply the same, my test username D. What is this? Yeah, I have just mentioned the wrong username here. So, but yeah, we can mention the same here. So, and my test password is now the password, because now we have set the username also, and we have also set the password. Now you have to enter and trust true that you get access, the same user, right? If you write something wrong, right, you can get access denied, right? My test username is not valid, so now you type the right username and your test is valid. So this is how we get connected to the database using Python front end. All right, I hope you've understood this portion. Let us say we are going to do some operation now here. All right, I will say, now wait a second, instead of printing, so I'll say if, all right, if connection dot is connected, if this connection is true, then if the connection has been made, then go and do the following. So I'll say db info. So I'll make a variable, I call this as db info. What is dd info? I'll say db info is equivalent to, I repeat, db info is equivalent to connection dot get underscore server underscore info. So you're calling an inbuilt function of Python. I repeat, you're calling an inbuilt function of Python with the help of connection, all right? Connection dot get server info, right? So let me go and print, all right? I can say connected to my SQL database. Which database are you connected with? That is DB info. You connected with DB info. Now let's see. Connected to my SQL database 5.5.1.0 MariaDB. So this is the version of the database that MySQL is using, right? So you're getting DB info and you're connected to this database, right? So let's take a cursor. You know what is cursor? Cursor means at this time the cursor is here. You can clearly see cursor blinking here. That means the cursor is after n at the end of connection. Now I'll say take cursor to connect. Now I will go and take this cursor to here connect. So that is the cursor that we will be using. So let's declare a variable, and the variable name that we are declaring is cursor, cursor. What is this? This is a variable, and this variable is going to take the cursor from the connection, right? Right? Right. Now what we can do, now cursor is with me, I can run any query. To run query, so I write it down here. In order to execute any query, we need to set the cursor right and add query to the cursor. So the first thing that we will be doing, get an instance of cursor method, right? So now we have got an instance of cursor method right here. So now we can say, we can run this command cursor, right? And what command do you execute? So I say I want to execute the command, right? SELECT So I want to execute this command, select database. This is an SQL command, right? I'll show you. I'll go to SQL and say select database, right? So I can run this command and you're getting the database, right? You can clearly see that you're selecting this database right here. Or you can supply any value. If you want to select the database, I'll say select database, right? And I can say PYTHONTEST, something like this, right? So select the okay, we have an error here because we did not close it. So let me show you from this side. Select database is going to return the current database, right? And now you want to fetch. I'll say record. Now you're selecting single database and we are expecting this cursor, right, to run this query, right, with this connection. I repeat, cursor is going to run the query, select database with the connection that you have just made, and you are now going to fetch one record. So I say cursor.fetch one. What is fetch one? You are fetching only one record from the database, and you can print record. Now what is fetch one? We know that we are going to select a single database. We are not going to get more than one record. If you are getting more than one record, then yeah, for sure we have to use a loop here. But since we are getting only one record, so we don't need to use a loop here. So that's the magic here, or that's the fun using Python, that you don't have to always use a loop. So let's go and try. Now you clearly see Python test. You're getting your database, Python test. If I run the command that I used to run from the front end, selec, let's say, select star from, or we can say select, or we can say select fname from. Now I'm asking and providing the table name, select fname from users, where username is equivalent to, let's say, FAHIM, and terminate the query here. Now let's run it. I can say none, we're not getting. Select, let me have it, select fname from users, where username is equivalent to Fahim, and it's not Fahim, I suppose username is Fahim Khan. So let me run it. Right, you can clearly see Fahim. Now select email from users, where username is equivalent to Fahim Khan. So I'll get the email fahim@gmail.com. Right? Okay. Or now let's see, how do you log in? If I have to log in that case, how do you run it? Right? So I can say, just a moment, right? So I'll go here. I know that I'm doing it in a non-object oriented way, but yeah, so we have just get started, and in order to learn professional things, you'll have to see what wrong can we do, or what are the wrong things. Once you know things being done in a wrong way, will you be able to get and learn things being done in a right and very good way, right? So I'll say user name is equivalent to input. Show the user, hey, you mind if you enter your username, and then the user enters the username, and I can say this, that you mind if you enter your password. So I'll say yes, we can enter password. That's it. Okay. And now what I do with the username and the password right here, I use the same here. So I'll say select email from users, right? Or we can say select ID, right, from users, where username is equivalent to, now static, so I'll supply, dynamic, so I'll say double quote, all right. I'll just have to concatenate a double quote, single quote, double quote, and I'll say plus plus, and the user name, right? I'll show you this username and password. So I'll have to run AND query as well to check whether the login is successful or not. So I'll say, right, and so I can use this, where username is equivalent to single quote, and double quote, and I can say and, right. What happened here? Something is wrong. All right, so let me write this query in a very nice way. Okay, the username is equivalent to this, and I can say and password is equivalent to, right, concatenate within single quotes, go for double quotes, and say password, right? So this is your query now, right? Right, so this is what your query will look like. All right, so I can say plus. Let me print, and let's see what we are getting now. Okay, so let me go and see what do we get here. Enter your username. So yeah, enter your username and enter your password. So I'll say username is Fahim, Khan, password is password. So now you're getting unknown column ID. Okay, we don't have ID here. I just keep on doing the same mistake. It is user ID. Let's see now. I'll say Fahim, okay, Khan, that's wrong. So none, we are getting none here, right? So I will just provide now right username and password. So Fahim Khan, and password is password. So I'm getting 6. The ID is absolutely 6, right? So now we can say, instead of this, if you want to judge. Now let me explain what we are doing here. We don't need to print this, right? So we have cursor. Let me delete all. All right, so let me delete this. Everything is in try catch. Get connected to the database, right? Okay, I don't need to get the info of the server either, so I'll just close it down. So get connected to the database, call the cursor and execute your query with the help of cursor. Select user ID from users, because I go to the next line, that's why I had to use this plus, where, I'll just keep it here, where username is equal to the username that you are entering, right, and password is equal to the password you are entering. So now it returns none or it returns 6. Right, now you are using fetch 1. Here what I do, I will say if record is equivalent to none. Right, so I'll simply say if the record that's been returned, if it's equivalent to none, right, so I will say print invalid credentials, right, or I can say invalid username or password, else, right, I can say print logged in. So I can even say username and I can concatenate is logged in, right? So now we can do this. So let's run it. Enter your username. So I'll say FAHIM. Enter your password. So I'm getting invalid username or password. So now let's carry on. Enter your username. So I'll say Fahim, KHAN, and the right password is password. So Fahim Khan is logged in. Now this is the first time we are dealing with a database and we're checking whether the username and password of the username and password we entered is correct or if it is incorrect, right? So this is how we do the things, and this is the same we use to insert data to the database, and this is how basically we run the query. But this is basically going to be a wrong method of handling things, right? This is not the right way to do things, right? The right way is to do the following. So I'll be showing you, right, slowly and steadily. So I'll make the first file, because if I have to register, I cannot create a connection again, right? If I have to update, do I have to create the connection again, right? If I have to delete, do I have to know? I will have a single connection file, right? And I call this as, let's save this file as db context. So this is the first file. So dbcontext.py, right? And this dbcontext.py will take this statement, import MySQL connector, right? So after importing, you will create class, right? So I will say dbcontext. So the class name is now dbcontext. So let's say, and I'll make a private variable here. So I'll say message is equal to blank, and it's a class variable. I don't have to explain what a class variable is, you already know. And I'll define a function connect, right? I'm simply defining a function connect, and I will use try, and I will go inside the try and take this connection code inside try, right? Now you can clearly see, now the code is not inside try, so I'll have to go inside try, and then I will use except, the except block, and the except block is going to take, right, I'll say exception exception, so I'll say it's going to take exception as e of exception is capital, and I can say message is here, right? So I will use this, right, message here. So I can say message is equivalent to e. Whatever is in e, when you catch an exception, catching it with an alias e, and that message that the exception is being caught goes to this message variable right here. Alright, so it's understood, or if it's not understood. Now I don't want, because I will be using this connect method again and again and again. So I don't want to create the instance and use memory again and again and again. So that is why I will create this as static method, Why do I create this as static method? Because static variables, instead of creating new instance, will use the old instance, right? Instead of creating a new instance, always going to use old instance. And second, I have to access this connect method without creating an object in an instance of DB context class. So that's why it is static. Now once you have opened the connection, I will say, right, inside the try block, of course, I will say if this connection sorry, same here, whatever we did here. So I'll say if connection dot is connected, I will say return the connection. Now we are returning a live connection. Now we have a live connection. So whenever I call db context dot connect, what does it return? This returns a live database connection. So every time I have to get connected to the database, I will call dbContext.connect. I'll simply call dbContext.connect and it's going to return me a live connection. And that's not sufficient. I have to define another function as close, right? And this close is going to take self and it's also going to accept one parameter, which is connection, right? Of type connection, right? So, and now I will use this connection right here and I'll say dot close. And that's it. This is going to be used to close the current database connection, and this is going to be the MySQL connection, right? So this connection is going to be closed. So I'll say connection dot close. It's capital connection, so it's going to close MySQL connection. So if I call dbContext.connect, it returns a live connection. You can clearly see here, right? And if I call close, I have to pass connection that I have to close and it's going to be closed. So now this is all. Let's hit F5. Absolutely right. So now we have to use this. Let's delete everything and use it here. So I can say import, right? Which db context, right? So I can clearly say import db context, right? So now after importing db context, absolutely. Or you can say, yeah, I have to import db context right here. Okay, so now my class is ready. Now what I need to do is create a login form, right? And create model and controllers as well. So the first thing that I am going to do is create a controller. So I can see class accounts, right? Controller. So now this is my class name and I will create a constructor of the same, right? So I can say define dash init dash, right? And I can say self, right? And I will define a connection right here. So I can say connection, or we can say just define a variable, declare a variable is equal to, so I can say db context dot, right? You can clearly see db context dot, okay, I can say db context dot connect. So let's say import db context as, right, C. Right, so we're importing db context as C. So we can say c dot db context, right? We're calling C, which is the file name. Whenever we type import db context, right? What are we telling? We are actually typing the name of the file. You can clearly see the name of the file is db context, right? So now, once we say import db context, we're importing the file, not the contents of the file, right? Contents will be separately imported. So I can say c dot db context, this is the file name and this is the class name here. I repeat, this is the class name here. Or you can even say from, you can even say this from db context import, right? db, you can say db context, right? You can even say from db context import db context. Now you can run it directly, db context dot. You can run it directly, db context dot, right? So from db context import the class db context. So now you can go ahead and say import db context dot con is equal to db context dot connext. It's a function that we are calling, and let's say pass here. Let's run it. Yeah, it's absolutely all right. So for example, if you have to create an accounts object, so I can say a is equal to accounts controller. Now we should get it right. Yeah, absolutely right. I don't need this, but yeah, just to test, right? So con is equal to db context dot connect, right? So we can even say con is equal to none, right? So whenever you create an instance of the class, now what is happening here? Let's see. You're calling, I repeat, let's see for the final time. I'll not be repeating after this. First, what we are doing, we created a class db context which has a method connect, and this connect method has a live active database connection because we're returning connection, right? After making the connection, we're returning connection back to db context. So that's why first what I do inside the class accounts controller, I make a class variable and initialize it with none. What is none? Right? None means null, right? What is null in other language is none in Python. So now I declare a constructor right here, and what will happen? When is this constructor called? Every time you make an instance of accounts controller, constructor is automatically called, which means you are now connected. You are now officially connected to the database, right? So to check, I can even do something like this. If it is connected, before returning, I can say message is equal to connected, right? So I can even see this. Now you can get this variable here, right? Because what you are doing here, you are going, this message is now taking connected, right? If you want to test whether the database connection is successful or not, you can print db context dot message. Now let us see what are we getting in db context dot message. Nothing. Why? Because we are first creating an object here. Okay, right, so we'll do it here and we'll do it here. Okay, now what is happening? You create an instance of accounts controller, right? Okay, and then call db context dot message, and now let's see what happens. You're not getting anything, or I can say we can print this a directly. So let's print this a directly. All right, so we are getting accounts controller, right? And we can say we can print this con. Let's see what is in con actually. Right, con is not defined. Why? I can say a dot con, it's defined none. So we're getting none. Why aren't we able to get connected to the database? So that's a problem. Okay, let me basically not do anything here. Let me go to the constructor and say print con. So let's see what's in the con. Con is true, right? It's true. Now, for example, if I make any mistake here, right? For example, I write a wrong password, right? And execute this accounts controller from this side, so we're getting none, right? So now if I go ahead and write the right password and go to accounts controller and execute, we are getting the successful connection. That means that we have been able to make a successful connection. So I'll close it down. Now let's start programming our accounts controller. What time is it? We still have good amount of time left, right? So let me see. All right, so we have time now. Now what happens? Why are we doing this? Now you can see this con is accessible anywhere from the class. All right, so what I do right here, that's why I have made this variable con here, because it can be accessed from anywhere in the class, like this. For example, if I have to now do, for example, I will define a function, right, is valid, and I'll say self, and it is going to take an object which is user. We know this already. It's going to take one object of the model class which has getters and setters, and we call this user. And I can say if user dot get username, right? If user dot get username is equivalent to null, or I can say if it's not equivalent to null, and user dot get password, it's a function, is not equivalent to none, or it's not equivalent to blank, or it's not empty, then go inside the body, right, and return true, right? T is capital. Else what you got to do is return, right, false. Right, before returning false, you can say user.set message. You know how we use accessors and mutators, so I can say if it is null, right? If it is not null, then return true. If it is null, then we are not entering anything in username and password. I can say, hey, right, please enter a username and a password, right? So the function is done. So the job of function here is done. The second thing that I am going to do is right, validate it. I can say define is authentic, and I can even pass self and user. Now this is where we have to get connected to the database, right? And what am I going to do here? Now let's get connected to the database and see whether the username and password entered is correct or if it is not correct, right? So we'll have to use the same cursor, right? Okay, so now let's go and say cursor. So I can use cursor, right? So cursor is equal to, now the connection is live here, so you can say cursor is equal to con dot, you can clearly see con dot cursor. You're asking cursor, right? You're using the live connection. When this connection is made live, anytime, whenever you create an object and an instance of this accounts controller clause, init is automatically called, right? Because creating an object is basically a call to the constructor, right? So when you create an object of the class, init is called and db context is initialized and con has a live connection, and using the same connection to call the cursor, right? And you can say cursor cursor dot execute. Now you are running cursor dot execute, and I'll do the same. Select, right? I can say this, select id from magic quotes users where were, right? We can say select id from users where username inside magic quotes. Whatever database attributes you are entering, database attributes will always go in single quotes. And select id from users where username is equivalent to single quote, double quote, plus plus, right? And now you have to supply, right? Okay, let me just take it here. I'll say plus, I'll just say plus so that I go to the next line. So I can say user dot get user name, right? Because we know that user is going to be an object with getters and setters or accessors and mutators, whatever you may call it, right? User dot get username, right? And what we can do, and we can say single quotes password is equal to single quotes, and password, no, I did something wrong, just a moment. I did it wrong. I have to close it like this, and I have to close it like this, okay? And now I can say and password is equal to single quote, double quote, plus plus, user dot get password, right? So we know that we are going to create accessors and mutators, so that in that case, right, so just take it here and say plus, right? Just the simple query, select id from users where username is equal to, within single quotes we have to supply it, that's why I supplied user.get username, and password, right, is equivalent to, within single quotes I have to apply, that's why I'm concatenating user.get password. Now I'll use the same here, right? I'll say record is equivalent to cursor dot fetch one, because we know that only one record is going to be fetched. All right, why? Because we are not allowing duplicate username, so it's going to fetch only one record. Yeah, if it's not fetching one record, if it is fetching multiple records, then loop is recommended. We may not be able to get all the records without using a loop, right? So I can say now record dot fetch one. Now I can use the same concept right here. Why am I doing it register? Okay, I have to do it in somewhere else, right? So let me take this code. It's not in the register, so I'll make a new file. I will say save as user login.py, and I'll use the same here. Right, so I'll paste the same code. Okay, all right. Run it, everything is fine. Okay, fine. Right, so I can say if, right? I can say if record is not equivalent to none, right? If record is not equivalent to none, that means when record is not equivalent to none when it's fetched. If nothing is fetched, then it's going to be none. If something is fetched, it's not going to be none. So I will say return, if it's not equivalent to none, return true. Means user found. Else, right? So I can say else return, right? False. But before returning false, I can say user dot set message incorrect username or password. Now that's it. Authentic is now checking from the database and is getting the live connection here. Right, is valid is checking for validations, and now I'll encapsulate them. Right, encapsulation is wrapping up the data so that it removes the overhead. Right, so I'll encapsulate them. I'll define a function. I call this as log in. Right, so I'll say login, and this function accepts one parameter, which is the object of the model user. Right, and this is what we are going to do here. I'll say if is valid. So I'll say if is valid function, pass user object to the function. If it returns true, then do this, right? Then call another function. If is authentic, it accepts user as an argument. I have to supply user as an argument here. If it returns true, then say user dot set message LOGGED logged in. It's as simple as anything, right? So now everything else is done. The login and the accounts controller is ready, right? So we are ready to fire, get set and go, but yeah, time is not going to allow me, right? So this is going to be user login. It's basically the controller, and we have also created the DB context file, right? Having two static methods. Okay, I didn't mention static here, so I'll say static. Two static methods. Why static? Because I don't want to create an instance of this again and again, right? So I don't want to create it. So I want to use the old instance and save memory, and I don't want to even create an object of DB context. I want to call it directly like I'm calling it without creating an instance or object of DB context. dbcontext.connect, I'm calling it directly. Right, and the controller is ready. Now we'll make model, and tomorrow we will make two things. We'll make a registration also, and we'll make model also from the Python, right? And it's going to be a fun. Those who have learned everything, or those who have learned up to 70%, will really enjoy lectures henceforth. And those who have not, wish them hard luck, right? They should have worked hard, but now, right, still time is there. They can watch all the previous lectures and spend good amount of time, burn the midnight oil, and come close to us. I wish you all the best. See you tomorrow, and do practice, right, and be in synchronous with me. Don't leave behind too many lectures so that you remain behind like a past, right? So you have to be completely synchronous with me. I wish you good luck. Bye bye, take care, see you tomorrow.